In this video, we'll explore some sources that deal with doctors and the medical profession. We're going to start in Sefer Shemot. Vayomer, im shamoa tishma lekol Hashem Elokecha, v'hayashar be'inav ta'aseh, v'ha'azanta lemitzvotav, v'shamarta kol chukav. So if you listen to God, if you do the mitzvot, if you do what's right in God's eyes, you have the English side by side, so I won't translate every word here. Kol ha'machala asher samti b'mitzrayim lo asim alecha. Then all of the diseases which I placed on Egypt, I won't place on you. Ki ani Hashem rofecha, because I am God, your healer. In the guiding questions here, I asked you to think about what this means to say that God is the healer of the Jewish people and what it implies about the medical profession. I'll leave that open-ended for you to think about. I'll just point out again that the idea here is that God placed illnesses, God gave illnesses to the Egyptians, and listening to God will enable that not to happen for us, and that is because God is a healer to us. Rashi, commenting on this verse, says, Lo asim alecha, ulefi pshuto, ki ani Hashem rofecha, umelamdecha Torah u'mitzvot. I am God, your healer, and I teach you Torah and mitzvot, leman tinatzel mehem, so that you will be saved from them. And this is like a doctor, it's an analogy. This is like a doctor who says to a person, don't eat this thing because it might make you sick. So God giving us the Torah and mitzvot, that's to save us from illnesses, that's to save us from negative things happening. And that's just like a doctor who says, you know what, don't eat that because it might make you sick. In the guiding questions here, I asked whether you thought that Rashi, what exactly you thought that Rashi meant by saying that God is a healer, how this is different or the same as you originally interpreted the verse. And I'll just say that in my own reading of this Rashi, it's not totally clear to me whether Rashi means this physically or whether Rashi takes this to be a kind of spiritual verse, a spiritual healing, that the Torah and mitzvot help you in a spiritual way, and it's parallel to a doctor who might help a person physically, or perhaps Rashi is thinking of something physical here as well. Moving on to the Malbim says, V'hinei hodia lahem. I should say, by the way, this Malbim was commenting on a different pasuk, but same basic idea. V'hinei hodia lahem shehatorah v'hamitzvot shetzivah Hashem livnei Yisrael lo hayu hatzavim kederach ha'adon hamitzaveh el avdo. So this is telling us that the Torah and the mitzvot that God commanded to the children of Israel, it's not like a master who commands a servant. Rather, it's like a doctor who tells a patient what to do. We might say it's like a prescription or like medical advice. If a master commands a servant to do something, those commands come l'tzorach ha'adon, for the needs of the master, who commands the service. V'im ya'avor al pakudato v'ya'anishoto, ein ha'onosh mekushar yimchato. And if the servant doesn't listen, if the servant transgresses what the master has said, and the master punishes the servant, that punishment is not tied up in the sin itself. Rak ha'onosh talui beratzon ha'adon v'charon ha'pobo, al shelo avad avodato ha'ra'ui. The punishment only comes because it's the will of the master. The master is angry. Charona pobo, the master is angry at the servant because the servant didn't do what the master wanted. But it's not that the punishment is a automatic outgrowth of the servant having done something wrong. But when a doctor tells a sick person what to do, those commandments, as it were, that's for the needs of the sick person. V'im ya'avor al pekudato, and if you don't listen, ha'onesh ratzuf b'hachet, the punishment follows the sin, as it were. Lo b'harofeh, it's not because of the will of the doctor, it's just you didn't listen to medical advice, so something bad happened. Not because the doctor wanted something bad to happen to you or the doctor got angry, but because that's the consequence of not following medical advice. V'chen hamitzvot shetzivah Hashem otanu, einam letzarcho, rak letzarchenu, v'rafot cholei nafshenu. And so too the mitzvot that God commanded us aren't for God's own needs, they're for our needs, to heal the sicknesses of our soul. V'im na'avor al mitzvotav ha'onesh ratzuf b'ha'avarav atzma. And if we transgress this, then the punishment will come naturally. For the Malbim, it's clear that we're talking about a kind of spiritual prescription and a kind of spiritual healer, that if you don't listen to what God says, then it'll just follow that your soul won't be as healthy. Just the way if you don't listen to a doctor, it's not that the doctor punishes you for not listening, it's just that you're not going to be as healthy. Moving on to the Ibn Ezra, B'tam kol hamachala, yesh lecha lizkor, ki be'einecha ra'ita hamachala. You need to remember that with your own eyes you saw this illness. V'hamakot asher samti b'mitzrayim ba'avor shemar jubi. And you saw the plagues that I afflicted Egypt because they rebelled against me. V'im ata tishmor chukai timalet mehem, shelo e'aseh lecha kasher asiti lehem. If you do what I tell you to do, then you'll escape from these sicknesses, these illnesses, these makot, and I won't do to them what I did to you. V'od ki ani Hashem eheyeh rofecha. And furthermore, I, God, will be your healer. Mikol machala shegazarti lihota al haaretz. From every illness that I decreed might come to the land. In lecha tzorech rofeh. You won't need a doctor. Al ken yesh lecha lehishamer shelo tamer bo v'lahovoto ki hu yitiv lach. And therefore, you really have to be careful not to rebel against God and to love God, because God will do good for you. So Ibn Ezra seems to say, if we really listen to God, we will not need a doctor. God is our healer, and we won't need a doctor, and that's the interpretation of this second half of the pasuk. Moving on to the Gemara in Kiddushin. The Gemara in Kiddushin is discussing the proper profession for a person, or for a parent to teach their child. Rabbi Meir Omer, le'olam yilamed adam et beno amanut nikiya v'kala. A person should always try to teach their child a profession that is clean and easy, v'yitpalel l'misha ha'osher v'nechasim shelo, and also to pray to the one, to God, to whom all property and wealth belong. She'ein amanut, she'ein ba'aniyut v'ashirut. Because every profession has poor people and rich people, right? Every profession could potentially make you rich, and every profession you could potentially fail at. Shelo aniyut min ha'omanut v'lo ashirut min ha'omanut ela ha'kol lefi zchuto. Money, wealth doesn't necessarily come from what profession you choose, but rather what you merit to earn. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo, hachamarin ruban rishayim. Most donkey drivers are evil. V'hagamalin ruban kshirin. Most camel drivers are decent people. Hasapanin ruban chasidim. Sailors are mostly very religious people, chasidim. This is sort of stereotypes about Talmudic professions. Tov sheberofim legehenom. And the best of doctors is destined for hell. So in the questions, I asked you to think through, why do you think that is? And Rashi answers this question for us. Tov sheberofim legehenom. Ino yeremin hacholi. Doctors aren't afraid of illness. They don't have sort of a proper fear of illness. Umachalo ma'achal b'ri'im. And they might feed a sick person something that's appropriate for a healthy person. They know mishaber libo l'makom. And they don't literally break their heart to God. They don't pray intensely enough. Upa'amim shehoreg nefashot. And sometimes they kill people. V'yesh bi'ado l'rapot ha'ani ve'ino merapeh. And they have the capacity to heal even poor people, even people who can't pay. And they don't do it. They only do it for paying patients. So again, I asked you, what's so bad about doctors according to Rashi? And how does this compare with modern stereotypes about doctors? And I will leave it to you to think about that. Then there's a quote from actually our Gemara, a piece from our Gemara. Titania Debei Rabbi Yishmael Omer, a breita brought in the name of the house of Rabbi Yishmael. V'rapo yirapeh. This is a pasuk that we've seen actually a number of times. It's the pasuk that's used to learn the obligation to pay ripui. Rapo yirapeh. Mikan shenitan reshut l'rofeh l'rapot. From here, the house of Rabbi Yishmael says we learn that permission was given to doctors to heal. And Rashi explains, Nitna reshut l'rofim l'rapot, v'lo amrinan rachmana machi v'ihu masi. And we don't say, God's the one who made you sick. God will make you better. God will heal you. A powerful argument against an attitude that does exist, as I pointed out in this week's earlier lessons, is a stereotype that does exist in some religions, or a belief that does exist in some religions. It may be that everything comes from God, but even if you believe that illness comes from God, doctors have permission to heal. We're meant to also believe in the power of human intervention and allow doctors to do their work. Then I brought you a piece from Otzar HaMidrashim, a short midrash, a collection of short midrashim. Ma'aseh Rabbi Yishmael v'Rabbi Akiva shehayu mehalchin b'chutzot Yerushalayim. It's a story about Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. They were walking outside Jerusalem. V'haya imahem adam echad, and there was a person with them. V'haga behem adam choleh, a sick person came up to them. Amar lahu, Rabotai, amru li b'ma'at rapeh. And this sick person said to them, Masters, please tell me how I can get better. Amru lo, aseh kach v'kach ad shetitz rapeh. And they said, okay, here's what you should do and you'll get better. Amru lehem, u'mi hika oti. And he said to them, okay, so who made me sick? Amru lo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And they said back to him, well, God made you sick. If you're sick, that must be God's will. Amar lahem, v'atem hichnastem atzmechem b'devar she'ino shelachem. Hu hika v'atem rapim, inchem ovrim al ritzono. So then the sick person says back to them, okay, so then you've inserted yourselves into something that has nothing to do with you, that doesn't concern you. God's the one who made me sick, and you think you can heal me? Aren't you transgressing the will of God? God clearly wants me to be sick. Why are you getting involved? Amrulo, ma malachtacha. They said to him, what's your job? What do you do? Amar lahem, oved adamani, v'harehem agal biyadi. He said, I'm a farmer. I work the land, and here's my reaper, my tool for reaping the crops. Amrulo, mi barat hakerem. And they said to him, oh, so who created the vineyard? Amar lahem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he said back to them, well, it was God. Amrulo, v'ata machnis atzmecha b'devar she'eino shelcha. Hu bara oto v'ata kotzetz pirotav mimenu. They said, well, then you're inserting yourself into something that has nothing to do with you. God created the kerem, God created the vineyard, and you're cutting fruit from it. Amar lahem, ein atem ro'im hamagal biyadi, ilolei ani yotzeh v'chorsho, mechasehu mezavlo menachsho lo ta'aleh me'umah. So the sick person, who happens to also be a farmer, said back to them, don't you see this tool in my hands? If it weren't for me, if I didn't go out and plow and cover and prune and fertilize and all those things, if I didn't work the ground, nothing would grow. Amrulo, shotesh ba'olam, mimalachtecha, the correction here is mi'amecha, lo shemata ma shekatuv, enosh kechatzir yamav, Kishem sheha'et eino menachesh u'mezavel v'nechrash, eino olah, v'imala v'lo sheta mayim v'lo nezavel, eino chai v'hu met, kach haguf, hazevel hu hasam, u'minei refuah v'ish adama hu harofeh. So they said to him, okay, so you're a fool, basically. Haven't you ever heard this pasuk in Tehillim, that a person is like, kind of like a short-lived plant? Just as a tree, if you don't prune it, if you don't fertilize it, if you don't plow, if you don't tend to it, basically, it won't grow. And you don't water it, right? It won't live and it'll die. So too the body. And the analogy is that the fertilizer is medicine and all kinds of medical treatments. And the ish adamah, the farmer, is like the rafet, is like the doctor. This is clearly an argument, and I asked you in the questions to think a little bit more about the allegory or the analogy that the rabbis create, but it's clearly an argument for the intervention of people, both in working the land and in being doctors, but not to the exclusion of a role for God, with the understanding that there is a role for God, but that these things are created with the intention that people will work to keep them healthy. And the final source here, from the Shulchan Aruch, Matna Torah Rashut L'Rofel Rapot. So this idea from the Breitza that the Torah has given permission to doctors to heal. Umitzvahi. The Shulchan Aruch adds that it's actually a mitzvah to do this. Uvichlal pikuach nefeshu. It's not just permission, it's a mitzvah to do it. It falls under the category of saving people, which is a huge mitzvah, of course. V'imonea atzmo, and if someone holds himself back from doing this, hareza shefech damim, they count as though they're killing someone. V'afilu yeshlo mi sheyarpe'enu, shelo min hakol adam zochel hidrapot. Even if there may be other people there, if you have the ability, then you should step in and do it. Because not every doctor gets to heal every person. If you have the ability, you should step in. Umihu lo yitasek b'refuah elim ken hu baki. But you shouldn't act as a doctor. You shouldn't try to heal people unless you're an expert. V'lo yeheshem gadol mimenu. She'im lo ken harei zeh shefech damim. If there's someone better than you at healing, then you also shouldn't get involved, because then, again, you're killing someone. There's a balance. You need to know your limitations, but it's actually a mitzvah to heal people. And again, I asked you what this implies about the medical impression, and I'll leave that open and we'll stop here.